Welcome, mathematicians extraordinaire. We're going to take a look at a few more properties of real numbers, real number properties. And specifically, we're going to take a look at some properties that apply to addition and multiplication, or we might call them additive properties or multiplicative properties. So let's get started. Oh, by the way, there is a little one-question quiz on the last slide of this lesson. Make sure you go to that and submit. Okay, so the first property that we're going to look at, if you look at our little chart, we got the top of the chart properties, addition, multiplication, or the additive and multiplicative properties. And the first one here is commutative. This is a hard word for me to say for some reason. I don't know why. But if you look there, as it pertains to addition, A plus B equals B plus A. So let's put some actual numbers in there. If we are looking at 2 plus 3, that is equal to 3 plus 2. That's an example of the commutative property. So 3 plus 2 is 5, as well as 3 plus 2 is 5. Doesn't matter which order we put them in, it's going to equal the same real number. Now, very similar is the multiplicative property. A times B equals B times A. So again, it doesn't matter the order of which they are in. So like 3 times 4 is 12, and so is 4 times 3. So again, no matter the order, the commutative property prevails, and both expressions would be equal to each other. Now, the associative property. Here we're going to have more than 2. You can have more than 2 in the commutative property as well. But on the associative property, if A plus B in parentheses plus C equals A plus, in parentheses, B plus C. So again, let's put some real numbers in there. If A is equal to 2 and B is equal to 3 and C is equal to 5, on the left side, 2 plus 3 equals 5. 5 plus 5 equals 10. And on the right side, A is equal to 2. 2 plus, in parentheses, 3 plus 5. 3 plus 5 then is 8 plus 2, also equal to 10. Again, no matter how we group them, as we're adding them together, the expression will evaluate to the same number. And then similarly again, in the multiplicative property, A times B in parentheses times C equals A times, in parentheses, B plus C. So again, it doesn't make the difference in the order that we're looking at. So let's say that A is equal to 2 and B is equal to 3 and C is equal to 4. On the left side of this, 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 times 4 is 24. And go to the right side, A being equal to 2, and B is equal to 3, and C is equal to 4. So we're going to go inside our parentheses and solve there first. 3 times 4 is 12, and 12 times 2 is 24. So no matter the order, the expressions will evaluate the same. Well, let's look at 3 more properties, additive properties as well as multiplicative properties. And the first one we're going to look at is the additive identity property. So A plus 0 equals A, and 0 plus A also equals A. So a simple way to put that is any number that is added to the whole number 0 is going to equal itself. So 4 plus 0 equals 4. That is the additive identity property. Now the multiplicative property, a little bit different in that it is any number multiplied by 1 is also going to equal itself. A times 1 equals A, and 1 times A equals A. So 3 times 1 equals 3, and 1 times 3 equals 3. That is the multiplicative identity property. Now we got the inverse, additive inverse property. And that would state that any number added to the opposite sign of that number is going to equal 0. So A plus minus A equals 0, or we could say that 3 plus a minus 3, or we would actually maybe express that as 3 minus 3 is equal to 0. That is the additive inverse property. Multiplicative inverse property, again, it's a little different as to how what that property states, and that is that any number multiplied by the reciprocal of that number is going to equal 1. So A times 1 over A equals 1, and 1 over A times A equals 1. Or let's throw a number in there. 4 times 1 over 4, the reciprocal of 4 is 1/4. That's going to equal 1. And 1/4 times 4 is also going to equal 1, an example of the multiplicative property. And then lastly, we look at the closure property for both addition and multiplication. And for the additive closure property, if any two numbers are added together, then its sum is going to be a real number. So two real numbers added together is going to have a sum of another real number. A plus B is a real number. As well as the multiplicative closure property, any two numbers multiplied by each other, their product will also equal a real number. Real numbers multiplied together is going to give us a product of a real number. It's thrilling, isn't it? And so lastly, we're going to look at the distributive property. And what the distributive property gives us, we're looking here at the example. If we say that A is being distributed or multiplied, A is going to be multiplied by both of the terms inside the parentheses, in this case B plus C, that A parentheses B plus C, or A times B plus C, is equal to AB plus AC. In other words, we are distributing both of the distributing this all here, distributing here, and we're distributing here, and that gives us AB plus BC. And so kind of like what we also saw in some of the other properties, it doesn't really matter on which end of the parentheses the number exists. We see here, we got in parentheses here, then we've got the B plus C times A, and we distribute that A the same way, even though it's on the right side. And so A times B is going to give us BA, and A times C will also give us, or will give us, CA, an example of the distributive property.